My parents hid Grandpa's will and gave my sister his house. So, I took legal action and cut ties. I'm 32 male, and I've always been the kind of person who works hard for what I have. Growing up in a middle-class family, in a modest suburban neighborhood, I watched my parents struggle to make ends meet, but the way they handled those struggles always seemed to differ between my sister Elle and me. From an early age, I understood the value of money and hard work, while Elle took a more carefree approach to life. Our parents' response to these different attitudes would set the stage for years of unequal treatment that would eventually come to a head over our grandfather's inheritance. About a year ago, my grandfather passed away. He was the family patriarch, and while we weren't particularly close, I had always respected him. He owned several properties, including an old house in a historic part of town that had been in the family for generations. This house wasn't just any property. It was a piece of our family's history, and my grandfather had always said it would be divided between Elle and me. A few weeks after the funeral, my parents called me over to discuss the inheritance. The conversation started casually enough, but I could sense something was off in their tone. That's when they dropped the bombshell. They had decided to give the entire house to Elle. "We think it's best," my father said, his voice firm but avoiding eye contact. "Elle's the one who's really settled here, and we thought it would be better for her." I was stunned. "What about what Grandpa wanted?" I asked, keeping my voice level despite the anger building inside me. "He always said it would be split between us. He told me himself, multiple times." "We've decided," my mother said firmly, using the same tone she'd used throughout our childhood when favoring Elle. "We think it's best for the family." The following months were difficult. I had to watch as Elle moved into the house, making plans and renovations without any consideration for its historical value or family significance. She treated it like a new toy, talking about modern updates that would strip away its character. She planned to paint over the original woodwork, replace the historic windows with vinyl, and convert the carriage house into a home gym. Every time I saw her, she acted as though nothing had changed, as though the property had always been hers to take. Elle always got what she wanted. I learned early on how differently my parents treated us. I remember when I was 12, I wanted a new bike. My parents told me I needed to earn it by doing extra chores and maintaining good grades. For 3 months, I woke up early to help with housework, mowed lawns in the neighborhood, and studied hard to keep my A's. When Elle wanted a bike 2 years later, they simply bought it for her birthday, no conditions attached. "Your sister's different," they'd say. "She needs more encouragement." This pattern continued throughout our teenage years. While I worked part-time jobs to save for college, Elle was given spending money because she needed to focus on her social development. When I got my first car at 17, it was a used Honda that I'd saved up for myself. Elle got a new Toyota for her 16th birthday because our parents worried about her safety. Every time I pointed out these disparities, I was told I was being petty, or that I should be proud of being the responsible one. The inequity extended beyond material things. When I wanted to attend a college 3 states away, my parents discouraged it, saying it was too expensive and impractical. They suggested I attend the local state university to save money. But when Elle chose an expensive private college across the country, they supported her decision entirely, even taking out additional loans to fund her education. "Your sister needs the experience," they explained. "You're already so independent." I worked through college, maintaining a full course load while holding down a part-time job. Elle changed majors 3 times, took 6 years to graduate, and never worked a day during her studies. Our parents covered all her living expenses, while I lived frugally in a cramped apartment with roommates to make ends meet. After graduation, I started my own business from scratch. Every penny I earned went back into growing the company. I worked 16-hour days, sacrificed weekends, and lived on a tight budget to make it succeed. Elle, meanwhile, jumped from job to job, always with our parents' financial safety net beneath her. When she couldn't make rent, they covered it. When she maxed out her credit cards, they paid them off. "She's still finding herself," they'd say. "You've always been so good with money." Then came the final betrayal. My parents called asking me to help Elle financially because she and her husband were struggling with their business. The same sister who had just received my share of the inheritance was now asking for more handouts. The same parents who had given her everything were now expecting me to bail her out. "You've been doing so well with your business," my father said, his voice carefully casual. "Elle and James are having some cash flow issues. We thought maybe you could help them out with a loan." The audacity of the request stunned me. After years of favoritism, they still expected me to step in and fix Elle's problems. But the true extent of their manipulation came to light when I discovered an email chain between my parents and Elle, discussing plans to sell the house and split the profits, all without my knowledge or consent. They had not only taken my inheritance, but were now planning to profit from it while still asking me for financial help. The discovery of my grandfather's actual will, which clearly stated an equal division of the property, was the final straw. Years of unequal treatment, favoritism, and manipulation culminated in this moment of complete betrayal. I realized that nothing would change unless I took action. I contacted a lawyer and filed for a temporary injunction to halt any sale of the property. The legal battle that followed was long and difficult, but it was also liberating. For the first time in my life, I wasn't accepting their decisions quietly, or playing the role of the responsible one who would understand and forgive. My parents were furious when they learned of my legal action. "How could you do this to your sister?" they demanded, as though years of favoritism and inequality hadn't led to this moment. My mother even tried to guilt-trip me by bringing up all the times I'd been strong for the family, suggesting that this was just another opportunity to show my maturity by letting Elle have her way. The legal proceedings lasted months, with Elle and my parents trying every emotional manipulation tactic they could think of. They brought up childhood memories, reminded me of family obligations, and even tried to paint me as the villain who was hurting his struggling sister out of spite. But for once, I stood firm. Eventually I secured my rightful share of the property. It was a bittersweet victory. While I had finally stood up for myself and won, it had cost me my relationship with my family. But perhaps that relationship had never been what I thought it was in the first place. I sold my share of the property and invested the proceeds into my business. Elle and my parents were angry, claiming I had betrayed the family by not letting her buy my share at a discount, but I no longer cared about their approval. Years of unequal treatment had taught me that I would never receive it anyway. A year later, my mother called with what seemed like an apology. "I know things have been difficult," she said, her voice carrying the weight of regret. But it was too late. The pattern of favoritism and inequality had been set too deep, for too long. Even in her attempt at reconciliation, she couldn't help but mention how hard everything had been on Elle. "I've learned that sometimes the hardest battles are fought within our own families, and that standing up for yourself doesn't make you the villain, even if your family tries to paint you as one." The unequal treatment I experienced throughout my life taught me valuable lessons about self-worth and the importance of setting boundaries, even with those closest to you. Today, I run a successful business and have found peace in the distance I maintain from my family. Elle continues to rely on our parents, and they continue to enable her, but I'm no longer part of that dynamic. I've learned that true family supports each member equally, and sometimes the family you choose is more valuable than the one you're born into. The experience has taught me that it's never too late to stand up for yourself, to demand equal treatment, and to break free from toxic family dynamics. While the road to this realization was long and painful, it led me to a place of strength and independence that I never would have found had I continued to accept their unequal treatment. Looking back now, I can see how each instance of favoritism, each unequal decision, each moment of enabling Elle while demanding more from me, built up to this final confrontation. The inheritance battle wasn't really about the house. It was about years of inequality, favoritism, and manipulation finally coming to a head. Sometimes it takes a major event like this to see the true nature of your family relationships, and to find the courage to change them. The hardest part wasn't taking legal action, or even selling my share of the property. The hardest part was accepting that my parents would never see their treatment of us as unfair. In their minds, they were always just helping Elle because she needed it more, never realizing how their actions affected me or our relationship as a family. But in the end, I'm grateful for the clarity this situation brought me. It helped me break free from a toxic pattern that had dominated my life for too long. While I may have lost my family in the traditional sense, I gained something more valuable: self-respect and the strength to stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult.